Please let me prove to you that there is a force at work in the world that is real and discernible, though with difficulty, and that can reasonably be called a force of evil. I know from a lot of experience in the almost 20 years I've been talking to people with a secular worldview about the reality of a force that can reasonably be called evil, a coherent force that consistently works to make the human world worse. I claim that that can be discerned in the world, and I know from experience that people with a secular worldview don't like the word, don't think that it calls attention to any meaningful something. I've dealt with a lot of reactions since 2005, and I know about the way the secular worldview thinks about evil, which is that it's an archaic topic or concept from a superstitious, irrational religious time. I claim that I can show you a coherent force that consistently works to make the human world more broken. And I will do so in a moment. But I understand that people with a secular worldview would react against the term because, well, the religious understanding of evil consisted of the devil, Satan, and then some kind of a general force of evil. I think was part of the implicit concept of the evil at work in the world, as understood in the religious traditions of the West. I don't know exactly, but it seems to me that the idea of a coherent force that consistently works to make the human world worse captures what was understood before in the religious framework when people spoke about evil. But then there was that supernatural being who had this intrinsic relationship to it, it seems. And if you leave that kind of religious supernatural realm and you become like a secularist is, someone who draws a picture of the world from what's actually visible in the natural world, the actual versus this imagined being of the devil. So you get rid of the devil, and what are you left with? How can you understand a force of evil then? So you decide that it doesn't exist. It makes sense because with the devil, people were able to conceptualize how there would be a force of evil. I don't know that they came up with an adequate understanding about how to put that together with the way they understood Almighty God. But anyway, you get rid of that, and what way do you have to conceptualize how there could be a force that consistently works to make the human world worse? Well, I guess it turns out that it doesn't immediately come to people. And so part of what I want to offer um, in my Better Human Story is that, how do I want to put this? That we can see in the world around us a force that is coherent and that acts very much as evil has always been understood to act, but arises as a force in a purely naturalistic way. It's just through cause and effect, it happens that you get this coherent force, not in a supernatural form of some malevolent being, but in the movement through culture of a pattern of brokenness behind which you can infer the existence of a force that is really essentially what we're up against. Evil, in that sense of a coherent force, is probably the best way to conceptualize what's dangerously awry in the human world as it exists right now. So let me, one of the things I feel I want to say that I have to offer here is a way of conceptualizing in purely secular terms the existence of a force. You don't have to call it evil, but I think I like to call attention to that's the way it behaves. But you can call it the force of brokenness, as long as you see the force, and that's what I'd like to show you. First of all, of every piece of brokenness that we see in the world, we can ask two kinds of questions. And by brokenness, I mean something going on that makes the human world worse. It can be war rather than peace. It could be injustice rather than justice. It can be hate rather than love. You know, those dichotomies sort of capture what's more broken and what's more whole. So we look at that brokenness, whatever piece of injustice or conflict or bad feeling toward that we see. We can ask ourselves, looking backward, what was in the unfolding of things in the world of cause and effect that preceded, that created this brokenness? How did it happen that things ended up so that this brokenness emerged? What made this person greedy? Why was there this war? How come this social arrangement is so unfair? For each one of those, there's the question, why, how did it come to be? And what we will find for the most part is that brokenness begets brokenness, that war leads to trauma, et cetera, all the different ways. And so what we see is a pattern of brokenness, whether it take the form of greed or cruelty or hatred or whatever, a pattern of brokenness That's just at the human realm, or the international system caught up in flames. I mean, it was brokenness in Germany that helped to create World War II, and that created brokenness of a whole variety of things. And a war that could be understood in terms of, you might say, good and evil, certainly better and worse. Brokenness begets brokenness. That's looking backwards. What things caused this effect? And then there's the other direction of looking into the future. What are the consequences on the rest of the world of this bit of brokenness that we just looked at as an effect, and now we're looking at as a cause? And again, you would find that brokenness begets brokenness. And it takes different forms. Injustice isn't the same as neurosis. But there's a relationship, a lack of integration, et cetera, brokenness. So what we see is a pattern of brokenness moving through the human culture in shape-shifting ways. And what moves that pattern of brokenness? And we should recognize that in physics, the word force means what moves something. F equals ma. And likewise, in this transmission of a pattern of brokenness through the human system, we see something being moved forward. That pattern of brokenness, that shape-shifting thing, is being moved, and we can infer that there's a force behind it, in a meaningful sense of the word force. So if we look at human history, we can see how brokenness ramifies through the human world in a whole variety of ways. The greed of the fossil fuel companies is leading to the brokenness of the biosphere. There is a force that can be seen moving through time. And another thing that I have to offer is a way of understanding how this force of brokenness would have first arisen. I can say that in a meaningful way, evil came into the world when a species extricated itself from the niche in which it evolved biologically, and by inventing its own way of life, which is to say, what our species did, an unprecedented thing in the history of life 10, 12,000 years ago, of inventing its own way of life, embarking on the path of civilization. I say that there is an inevitable destructive consequence to crossing that line, irrespective of the nature of the creature that steps across that line, that there's an inevitable force that emerges because the extrication from the natural order leads to a disorder. That disorder is anarchy. Anarchy means ultimately a war of all against all. And that the ball is rolling in the direction of inflicting brokenness on the human world. The spirit of the gangster gets a disproportionate say in how civilization will develop. I claim that I pretty much proved that. I mean, as far as I can see, I proved it. I mean, it'll be substantially true. A disproportionate say, it doesn't say how disproportionate. I think it's a significantly disproportionate say has gone to the spirit of the gangster. You know, just like Putin's impact on the world's, the condition of the world today is way disproportionate to what is the presence in the human world of a spirit that ugly that it would conduct itself the way Vladimir Putin conducts himself. You can see it right there. And then you add gangsters like Trump and Netanyahu and Hamas, and you end up with a really disproportionate say on the in how the world, the human system, the human civilization is evolving. So it is important to recognize the existence of this force, whatever name you want to give it, because ultimately the challenge that we face as a species is to get our act together, which is in a holistic kind of way. It's shape-shifting goodness and wholeness. As brokenness begets brokenness, so wholeness begets wholeness. There is a struggle between these two coherent forces about which is going to control the destiny of humankind. And one might say that the human future is to be conceptualized in this way. It's a toss-up whether the spirit, the force of brokenness, which is to say something like evil, or the force of wholeness, which is to say good, is going to prevail as civilization unfolds. Are we going to blow? Is the war of all against all that going to culminate in some kind of that anarchy, culminate in a nuclear holocaust? Might. Came kind of close in 1962, and there's concerns about China and Taiwan and the United States, maybe two major nuclear powers, maybe at war. Yeah, we're playing Russian roulette. So we need to understand that at the center of the human drama, ever since the rise of civilization, there have been two coherent forces battling, in a sense, over whether the world become more whole or more broken. And it is at that level that we need to make civilization more whole, which means able to survive for the long haul because we have eliminated the chance of self-destruction from the inner societal system, and have minimized the chance that our way of interacting with this planet will fatally damage the foundation of our lives by its impact on the rest of the biosphere. Brokenness versus wholeness. Good versus evil. The battle between good and evil, I claim I can show, is a reality, an important reality. And giving it those names is my way of saying that there is a reality to that dimension. But if that terminology gets in the way, um, let's just say that we can see a connection between uh, these as forces that are moving patterns through the human world. In the case both of how shape-shifting transformation of that pattern of wholeness, both wholeness and brokenness, we can see the force the way we can see the wind in the swaying of the trees and the flapping of the clothes on the line. And even if it's kind of abstract, it is a reality that wholeness is begetting wholeness and brokenness is begetting brokenness. And the human future depends on which of these two coherent forces is ultimately going to prevail, because we're not going to be able to muddle through forever, not when we've got the ability, as we've now manifested in our lifetime, the ability to destroy ourselves. So we're not going to muddle through because what can happen will happen until we order our civilization in such a way as it can't happen. We're taking the chance that ultimately there's going to be the Russian roulette ends badly. So I invite you to consider looking at what I've laid out on my website, abetterhumanstory.org, to show the reality of a force that's reasonable to call evil and that's playing a central role in the human drama, a drama that we're much more likely to succeed in getting a good outcome out of if we understand the nature of what it is we need to accomplish. Thank you very much for listening. Bye-bye.